In this video, we're diving into the original 9 members of the Sons of Anarchy Motorcycle Club, also known as the First Nine. These guys were the foundation of SAMCRO, the club that eventually became the heart of the show. Before settling in charming California, they got their start in Northern California in 1967. The show's creators, including Charlie Hunnam and Ron Perlman, even approved a spin-off focusing on their backstory, titled The First Nine Prequel. So, who were these First Nine? They were the founding members of SAMCRO, and they set up shop in Charming after starting out in Northern California. John Teller, one of the key figures, was a man with big ideas. He had strong idealistic beliefs and thought that the Sons could go down a different path, one that didn't revolve around guns and violence. As a war veteran who had seen the worst of the Vietnam War, John returned home with a deep sense of what peace, freedom, and liberty really meant. These experiences shaped his views and made him passionate about bringing these principles to the club. John was more than just smart. He was street savvy too. He could see the trouble brewing if the club got involved with gun running, and, eventually, he started to think the Sons had lost their way. He was willing to make big sacrifices, even his life, to steer them back on track. Piney Winston, another founding member and close friend of John, shared his worries. Piney described John as a complicated guy, fiery and quick to react, but also really intelligent and loyal. However, sometimes John's loyalty to the club made him overlook his own values, which wasn't always a good thing. Even after John's death, his influence lingered in the club. His writings, especially his manuscript, The Life and Death of SAMCRO, kept his ideals alive. They served as a reminder of what the club stood for in the beginning, and they continued to inspire some members, even those who never met him. John's relationship with his son, Jax Teller, was tricky. Jax often clashed with his father's ideals and struggled with what the club had become. But as he dug deeper into John's life and beliefs, Jax started to understand his dad's vision more clearly. Back in the 60s, John and his buddy Piney fought together in the Vietnam War as part of the 25th Infantry Division. They came home in 1967 to a country that had little respect for them and was in chaos. Facing discrimination and financial hardship, John and Piney wanted to hold on to the bond they had built during the war. So, along with Lenny, they started the Sons of Anarchy Motorcycle Club, a brotherhood built on loyalty and unity. In 1968, John set up the Sons Clubhouse on Fairfield Road in Charming. He and Clay Morrow even started their own garage, Teller Morrow Auto Service. But times were tough, and the Sons had to start dealing in the black market to get by, selling drugs and smuggled goods all around Northern California. Things took a tragic turn when John was hit by a semi-truck on November 11, 1993, dragged for 178 yards, and fought for 2 more days before passing away. His death left a huge mark on the club, and he left behind a legacy that no one could forget. In his final days, John penned a manuscript that would change the course of the Sons' culture forever. It was a mix of his tragic story and his philosophical ideas. A manuscript that would ultimately shape the future of SAMCRO in ways no one could have predicted. In his manuscript, John Teller chronicled the rise and fall of the Sons of Anarchy. He blended the words of famous thinkers like Emma Goldman and Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, promoting an idea of personal freedom and liberty that echoed the rebellious mood of the times. But this wasn't just a call for freedom, it was a warning. As the club dove deeper into the dangerous world of gun running, John saw the Sons losing their way. Despite all the pressure to stick to the violent path they were on, he fought hard to steer them back to their roots. His writing served as a challenge to the members who still believed in the club's original spirit, a call to rise above the darkness they had fallen into. Let's talk about Piney, one of the founding members. Born on June 17, 1941, Piney was the oldest living member of SAMCRO and served as the senior advisor. Even though his emphysema meant he needed an oxygen tank and couldn't keep up with the rest of the gang on runs, he still showed up to meetings and was deeply respected. Piney was a symbol of the old-school SAMCRO, a reminder of the roots the club came from. His son Opie was also part of the club, and Piney took pride in their bond. Piney's history with John Teller went way back. They'd been childhood friends and had always relied on each other. After John's death, Piney stayed on as vice president until Jax, John's son, was old enough to take the seat. He had a lot of faith in Jax, and when the time came, Piney stepped down but remained within the club to keep an eye on Clay and have a say in decisions. Piney never trusted Clay fully, but he never had solid proof of any shady dealings on his part. Piney's criminal record was pretty extensive, from accusations of money laundering and extortion to even murder. Although he was never convicted, he had a few run-ins with the law, including being brought to trial for prostitution. But there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. Like many members of motorcycle clubs, Piney was also involved in the transport of stolen goods. Despite his controversial past, Piney was a powerful and respected figure within the club, right up until his death. Back in the Vietnam War, Piney and John Teller fought together. But when they returned home, they felt abandoned by the country they had fought for. That feeling of being unappreciated was one of the main reasons they founded SAMCRO, a place where they could find their own kind of freedom. This desire for independence drove them to create a club that valued loyalty and brotherhood. By the time Season 1 rolled around, the Sun's weapons were stolen by the Mayans. Piney showed up for a meeting despite his health struggles, and it became clear that he was still a major leader in the club. Later on, his son Opie asked him for a loan, but Piney had to decline. He was broke. Still, he urged Opie to go on a run with Clay and Bobby to make some extra cash. Piney had a customized Harley-Davidson Tri-Glide, which had a special spot for his oxygen tank between the back wheels. Unfortunately, Piney became the third member of the First Nine to be executed by Clay. Now, let's talk about Lenny, or the Pimp, the third member of the original Nine. Lenny was from Oakland, California, and was a key figure in the club's history. He met John and Piney in military boot camp, but they lost touch during the Vietnam War. After the war, their paths crossed again in Hanoi. Lenny's no-nonsense attitude and smarts made him an excellent addition to their club. He was a powerhouse in the gym, competing in bodybuilding competitions and building a physique that was hard to beat. But Lenny's charm wasn't just about his muscles. He was known for his way with women, which he turned into a successful business. He even coined the term "crowater," meaning someone attracted to bikers. Lenny was also known for his wild side. In 1989, he was charged with killing 3 ATF agents during a raid, but he still insists he didn't do it. He's currently serving a life sentence at Stockton State Prison, but he still holds some serious sway in the prison yard by making deals with the Russian mafia. Lenny's story adds another layer of depth to the club's complicated past, showing just how far the Sons of Anarchy have come, and how much they've lost along the way. Unfortunately, Lenny's heavy smoking finally caught up with him in 2006 when he was diagnosed with larynx cancer, leading to the removal of his vocal cords. Despite this, he continued to call the shots and make deals from behind bars. In short, Lenny Yanowitz was a crucial figure in SAMCRO's rise. He was sharp, no nonsense, and had a magnetic charm, not to mention his impressive physique. Even though he's locked up now, his influence still echoes throughout the club and beyond. Now, let's take it back to the swinging 60s. A young Irishman named McGee arrived in the US, eager to explore the land of freedom with nothing but his motorcycle. He made his way from New York to California, hitting every seedy bar and cheap motel along the way. It wasn't long before fate stepped in, and he crossed paths with 3 war-weary Vietnam veterans, John Teller, Piney Winston, and Lenny the Pimp Yanowitz. Together, they founded the Sons of Anarchy, or SAMCRO, a brotherhood based on loyalty, blood, and iron. As the years went by, the Sons grew in both numbers and power. In the 70s, Clay Morrow joined the group, and they set up shop in charming California, where they became known as the Redwood Originals. McGee was one of their most trusted members, a fierce fighter with a heart of gold. But his story didn't stop there. In the 80s, McGee returned to his homeland with John Teller and Clay Morrow to start a new chapter of SAMCRO in Belfast. There, McGee became the crucial link between the Sons of Anarchy and the IRA, navigating a dangerous game that tested all his skills. Through it all, McGee stayed loyal to the Sons and the people he loved. After John Teller died, McGee took on the responsibility of caring for Maureen Ashby and her daughter Trinity, eventually falling in love with Maureen. Their relationship was mysterious, as neither of them wore wedding bands, but their bond was strong and unbreakable. However, things weren't always smooth. McGee's betrayal was exposed by Liam O'Neill, and the club trapped him on a roof where he admitted it was all for the money. Clay, in a fit of rage, shoved McGee off the roof, stripped him of his patch, and destroyed his cut. Before leaving Belfast, Clay gave McGee's wife, Maureen, the First Nine patch, symbolizing the end of McGee's involvement in the club. Next, let's talk about Wally Grazer, the fifth member of SAMCRO. Wally ran away from home at 16 and lived as a nomad, turning to crime to survive. He eventually crossed paths with the club after selling some stolen goods to one of their members, and that's when he was invited to join. Wally's role in the club revolved around the trade of stolen items, which helped the Sons make money. Sadly, Wally took his own life in 1986 after being diagnosed with liver cirrhosis. Then there was Thomas Uncle Tom Whitney, the sixth member to join SAMCRO in 1968. He had ties to the darker side of society and brought connections to the club that were crucial for their operations. Tom and Wally were both drifters, and the Brotherhood of the Sons was likely a major draw for them, offering a sense of community and purpose that they hadn't found elsewhere. Uncle Tom's connections and reputation made him an asset to the club, and despite his past, the Sons welcomed him in. This is a key part of the club's recruitment strategy, looking past a person's history if they had valuable skills and could contribute to the club's goals. Tom's entrance into the Sons of Anarchy reflects the club's willingness to accept those who were looking for belonging, regardless of their past. Uncle Tom was the last of the First Nine to pass away before the first episode of Sons of Anarchy aired. His death happened the same year that Jax Teller and Opie Winston joined the club. Finally, the seventh member to join the group was Chico Villanueva, who became part of SAMCRO at the age of 24 in 1968. These early members and their complex stories laid the foundation for what would become the legendary Sons of Anarchy Motorcycle Club, shaping its future and defining its code of loyalty, brotherhood, and survival. Before joining SAMCRO, Chico had already served in the Marines and done a tour in Vietnam. Like many other club members, he had nothing to go back to after the war, so he spent most of his time cruising up and down the coast, from Mexico to Oakland, on his bike. Along the way, he worked with his cousins smuggling marijuana, enjoying the freedom of the open road. It was during one of these rides that he met the Sons of Anarchy, who were on a run, and they were instantly impressed with his skills on the bike. He was invited to join, and his connection with the Mayans Motorcycle Club soon made him an invaluable asset. Chico's time in Vietnam left a deep mark on him, just like it did for many veterans. The horrors of war made it hard for him to adjust to civilian life when he returned to the States. In his search for meaning, he found solace in the freedom and thrill of riding, which helped him cope with the trauma he'd faced. Sadly, Chico's life was cut short when he passed away in 1976 at just 32 years old. Even so, his legacy lived on within SAMCRO as he became an important part of the club's history. Chico's story really highlights the struggles that many veterans face when they come home from war, and how joining a motorcycle club like the Sons of Anarchy can offer a sense of belonging and purpose. He was known for his skill on the bike, his loyalty to the club, and his ability to establish the important relationship with Marcus Alvarez, the president of the Mayans. Chico's tragic death in a motorcycle accident in 1976 was a huge blow to the club, and his memory is still honored by its members today. His story is a testament to the strong bonds that can form between people who share a love for motorcycles, and how those bonds can offer a sense of community when life feels lost. Next up, we have Otto Moran, also known as Lil Killer, who was the eighth member of SAMCRO. He wasn't to be confused with another member, Big Otto Delaney, who joined later and got the nickname Big to distinguish them. Lil Killer first crossed paths with the Sons of Anarchy during a Memorial Day ride in La Honda, California. Despite his smaller size, he had a fearless attitude and worked as a bouncer at a bar in Modesto. Intrigued by the club, Lil Killer asked how he could join, and they let him ride with them to see if he had what it took. It didn't take long for him to prove himself, as he arranged security gigs for the club with up-and-coming music acts, earning them extra cash and valuable connections. Lil Killer earned his nickname after an infamous fight at a music festival where he supposedly killed a 300-pound man with his bare hands. While he was definitely a great asset to the club as an earner, Lil Killer had a weakness for gambling and ended up in serious debt. In 1985, his body was found floating in the Sacramento River, and foul play was suspected, but the true cause of his death was never confirmed. His loss was a major blow to the club, as he was known for being a tough, fearless fighter, both in and out of the club. Though Lil Killer was small in stature, he was known for taking on much larger opponents and coming out on top. His fighting skills earned him the respect of his fellow club members, and he was often called in to mediate disputes with rival gangs. Despite his tough exterior, Lil Killer had a softer side. He was incredibly devoted to his family and would do anything to protect them. He was also a talented musician and often played his guitar at club gatherings, showing that he was more than just a fighter. His death shocked the club, and many members were left grappling with the loss. Some suspected that his gambling debts had led to his death, while others believed it was part of a bigger power struggle within the club. Regardless of the circumstances surrounding his death, Lil Killer's legacy lived on in SAMCRO. He was remembered as a loyal and dedicated member who had always given his best for the club, and his memory continues to be honored by those who knew him. Clay Morrow, the last of the original First Nine members of SAMCRO, is one of the most complex and dangerous figures in the history of the Sons of Anarchy. Born on February 14, 1949, Clay had already cemented his role in the club by the time the series began. By season 4, he had lived in charming California for 31 years, making him a well-established figure in the community. He was the youngest of the First Nine members, but he was always ambitious. And even though he was not a combat veteran like many of his brothers, he quickly proved himself to be a skilled and ruthless leader. In 1969, Clay enlisted in the Army Airborne and served until 1972, earning the parachutist emblem that he proudly displayed on his vest. After returning from Vietnam, he reconnected with SAMCRO and became an essential member, working alongside club founder John Teller to establish the Teller Morrow Auto Shop. This was just the beginning of his rise within the club, and by the mid-80s, Clay was fully involved in the club's growing criminal activities, including the gun-running business that would later define SAMCRO. Clay's role in the escalation of the club's illegal operations came into sharper focus after the death of John Teller in 1993. Following John's death, Clay became president of the charming chapter of SAMCRO. His leadership marked a darker shift for the club, as it became more heavily involved in criminal enterprises, much to the dismay of John Teller's son, Jax, who had different ideas about the future of the club. Under Clay's leadership, SAMCRO expanded its reach, becoming more entrenched in gun running and various other illegal activities. Clay's criminal past was extensive, with a criminal record that included an unspecified prison term and numerous convictions. His ties to violence were clear, and he didn't hesitate to eliminate threats, even if it meant taking the life of a close friend. One of the most significant and heartbreaking moments in SAMCRO's history is when Clay murdered Piney Winston, his former mentor and one of the founding members of the club. Clay's brutal betrayal of Piney, who had once sponsored him and taken him under his wing, showed just how far Clay was willing to go to maintain power. As president, Clay wore several patches on his cut, including President, First Nine, Unholy Ones, and Men of Mayhem, reflecting both his authority within the club and his violent legacy. Despite his aging body, Clay remained a skilled fighter and often stood toe-to-toe with younger members like Jax, though his advancing age sometimes slowed him down. Still, his desire for power never wavered, and his ruthlessness remained a defining characteristic. Clay's relationship with Gemma Teller, whom he married after John's death, further complicated his character. Gemma's role in the club and her loyalty to both her late husband John and her current husband Clay made for a tumultuous dynamic. Clay's ambition extended beyond his leadership of SAMCRO. There were rumors that he had played a part in John Teller's death, even potentially tampering with his motorcycle to cause the fatal accident. Clay's motivations were complex. He wanted to take the president's seat and secure his place as the undisputed leader of SAMCRO, while also maintaining his hold over Gemma, which ultimately led to a tragic power struggle between him and Jax. The relationship between Clay and Jax, John's son, was deeply strained. Clay saw Jax as a threat to his leadership, and, as the series progressed, their conflict escalated, with Jax pushing against his father figure's legacy and eventually taking the club in a new direction. This tension came to a head in the series finale when Jax, in a brutal act of vengeance and justice, killed Clay, ending his reign over SAMCRO and symbolically putting an end to the cycle of violence and manipulation that had plagued the club for so long. Clay's death at the hands of Jax was both a heartbreaking and poetic conclusion to the saga of SAMCRO. The story came full circle as Jax sought to avenge the wrongs done by Clay, and in the process, both father and son came to understand the cost of loyalty, power, and betrayal. Clay's demise mirrored the tragic nature of the club itself, formed from a brotherhood of veterans seeking freedom, only to become entangled in violence, crime, and a constant struggle for control. Clay Morrow was undoubtedly one of the most influential characters in the world of Sons of Anarchy. His ambition, ruthlessness, and betrayal left an indelible mark on the club, and his death marked the end of an era for SAMCRO,